you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy. And before we begin, Pierre, we need to credit Mike in the comments section for lifting the mush tag off one Jimmy Murphy, as I got the Panthers and overtime. Sorry about that, Pierre. Kept you up a little later. But I did call it finally. I got two right, actually. Last night in Game 4, the Florida Panthers beat the New York Rangers 3-2. Pierre, as you said, the Panthers coming in really didn't need to do much differently than they did in the previous game that the Rangers basically stole in overtime. And that's what they did. And I thought the one thing you mentioned was closing up the gaps through the neutral zone. I thought that was improved as well. Was there anything else you noticed about their game that played a role in them getting a win?
Just like Game 3, in Game 4, they didn't start on time. So they got to start on time in Game 5. They were way behind the 8 ball in the first period of Game 3, and they were way behind the 8 ball in the first period of Game 4. It's not good enough, not for that team. So I'm sure Paul Maurice wasn't really happy with that, and I'm going to say that he probably let them know that that's unacceptable. And if you're going to go into New York and win Game 5 and take a lead in the series, you're going to have to play 60 minutes. You can't play 45.
Yeah.
And I would expect they'll be better in the first period. That being said, it's not so much about Florida now, Jimmy. It's about the Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
They are fortunate. They are blessed that Igor Shesterkin has gone to a whole other level. Part of that's his athleticism, and part of that is Jonathan Quick mentoring him, and part of that is Benoit Allaire, the goalie coach in New York, who's done a fantastic job with him. If they don't have this guy, they're down 3-1 in the series. They might even already been beaten the series.
Yeah,
that's how good he's been.
I'm with you on that. One thing, Pierre, too, I remember I was texting you leading into the game saying, hey, it looks like Wheeler's in. And I suggested, hey, maybe this is an emotional boost, considering what he's been through to get to this point. And I don't think a lot of people when the playoffs started thought that he would return in the playoffs unless they went deep as they did. But a really amazing accomplishment for him. Congratulations for him to be back in the game. But you said, or maybe it goes the other way. Fast forward to overtime. I'm not pinning the blame on him there. But I do think it was a combination of things that he did play a role in that led to that overtime goal.
That's a big reach to put a player into that kind of a series after that kind of time off, and especially when you look at his age.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big reach. And I have no problem with the effort level of Blake, the shot blocking of Blake, the compete level of Blake, the hockey sense on the bench, Blake. It's all good. The fact that he probably is not in love with Paul Maurice doesn't hurt either if you're the Rangers. He's a motivated player. He probably wants to prove something to Paul that maybe they didn't get along in Winnipeg, and they want to straighten it out. All that being said, I don't know about putting him on the – and look, I like Laviolette a lot. I don't know about the decision to put him on in overtime. I just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then you can look at him as well, Pierre. I mean, there's a lot of things. A lot of things culminated there at the wrong time for the Rangers. But one thing I will say that gives me hope for the Rangers, not just Shesterkin, is I kind of like the way, I know they haven't been the best offensively, but some of their leaders I thought were stepping up at certain points in that game. Towards the end, I saw some message sending going on as we went on there. And I also, Pierre, now he could have got thrown out of the game, but I love what Chris Kreider did with the mouth guard. I thought it was hilarious. And Matthew Tkachuk said today he thought it was the best player of the game. So, two guys kind of throwing some gamesmanship at them there. I love to see that in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd rather just see which team's going to win. I get that. It's people like to see that. That's good. I get it. And I thought Tkachuk's comment was good. The best play you made all game. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That was good. It's a good retort. That's not going to win Florida the game, and it's not going to win the Rangers.
No. But it was fun stuff.
Or the series, I should say. Yeah. This series got a life now. There's no question. Minimum of 6, but probably 7. I can't think the Rangers are going to lay an egg in Madison Square Garden tomorrow. I can't think they will. Now, I know I sent this to you. My concern for the Rangers is not just the big guys that haven't produced.
Mm-hmm.
They got some hurt guys.
Yeah.
You can see it. Fox is clear.
Yesterday, yeah. Fox.
Lindgren is hurt.
Yep.
So there's two right there that are they're partners too.
Yeah.
I don't know how healthy Trouba is. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's making some really fundamentally flawed decisions. Mm-hmm. Last night, for instance, on the power play winning goal, now I credited the Florida Panthers coaching staff because I think they saw this. Rangers were pressuring Tkachuk a lot. Mm-hmm. They were coming out and overcommitting. So what that does is that opens up that seam pass down low. So it goes from Montour right down to Barkov. There's no resistance there.
Yeah.
So that all Reinhart has to do is just bounce out 2 feet more.
Yep.
Nobody's in his face. So he's got time and space to really bam the puck. And so that was a good read by by Florida, but not by Trouba or the Rangers. And I just wonder if Trouba's 100%. I just wonder.
So interesting you say that, Pierre, and just to talk in big picture, and it's not just specified to the Rangers or the Panthers, but just in general, when you're in the playoffs, you're this deep and you're battling injuries. Does trying to compensate for the injury when you're dealing with it make you sometimes make decisions that you wouldn't?
Mm-hmm.
And
handling the puck. It's what a good way to phrase it. Better than I ever could have, Jimmy. Look at Adam Fox. When he's on his game, he's first to the puck. He wants the puck. He's spinning out of trouble. Now, I will say this. The Lafreniere goal last night, if you watch the whole replay, that's a heck of a play by Adam Fox.
Yeah.
So he can do that. Usually he does that deep in his own zone. I think he's backing off a little bit because he knows when he does that deep in his own zone, he's going to be kissing the glass.
Yeah.
And so it's not the same guy back there. And you can see – I think it was Tarasenko got Lindgren once.
I was just going to go Lindgren too. Yeah.
Right into the
turn. I remember that.
And he left the bench, Jimmy, and he didn't look good. He needs to be physical.
Let's not forget, he missed quite a few games at certain points of the season as well. You never know if something was re-aggravated from that.
He's one of the most brave kids in the league, Jimmy. He's brave as all get out. He's a tough kid, and he's brave and amazing teammate. Can you imagine if you would have been a Boston Bruin, Jimmy? Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oops. Beat me to it. And I'll tell you what, all season long, you and I were suggesting they needed Noah Hannafin to come in and play on the left side there with Charlie McAvoy. Can you imagine him and McAvoy as a pairing for the last 5 years? Mm-hmm. The Bruins could have definitely benefited from that. But, hey, I'm not going to sit here and knock Don Sweeney for that because in the moment I credited him for getting Rick Nash. So I would be a complete hypocrite if I did that. So anyhow.
I didn't, and Donnie's my friend, and I didn't.
I know. I remember talking to you when it happened. Actually, you were the one who gave me a heads up. It might be happening. I can tell our listeners that now since it's so long ago. But anyhow, Pierre, before we go on, we're gonna analyze more Rangers Panthers. We're bringing on John Bartlett, great guy from Sportsnet. Got to know John quite a bit when I was living in Montreal, and he was doing play-by-play for TSN 690 up there. At the time, Pierre, I was doing a radio show for Sirius XM called Top Shelf. You've been on it with me a couple times. And we were broadcasting. We had a studio built right next to this place out in West Island. It was called Club West Island, and there was a bar there and everything. So the last episode I ever did, John Bartlett just happened to be at the bar before the show. and the bar manager, who I think you might know, it's one of Mitch Melnick's friends, Steve Traynor. You ever meet Steve Traynor? Yeah, so Steve Traynor is running that place. He comes in right as we're getting ready to go on the air, and he says, hey, what do you think of having Bartlett on? He's sitting at the bar right now. And I go, well, how many deep is he? And he goes, well, only 2 Guinness. We'll be fine. And so he came in, and him and Steve Traynor and I, we closed out the show, and it's one of the greatest broadcast memories I've had. And I'll always remember him doing that for me. So he'll be joining us here. We'll share some memories as well when he comes on. But quickly looking ahead to Game 4 tonight for the Oilers and the Stars. And, of course, the big story right now is Darnell Nurse and his struggles. And I want to go right to this clip here, Pierre, because I really love what Connor McDavid did today. He was a true captain coming to the defense of his teammate who's getting beaten down left and right by fans and media alike. So let's listen to this clip right now. There's our good friend Mark Spector asking McDavid, and I believe it was Stuart Skinner was on the stage with him as well.
This to whoever wants to handle it. Darnell Nurse has taken a ton of heat here the last 24 hours. His numbers in this series don't show well. Your thoughts on, I guess, how he's played, what the heat he's getting, and what you think he'll get tonight?
I'll take that. Nursey, he's a big piece of our room. Plus minus whatever. I know it's a funny stat. But he gives us everything he's got, and he always has for a long time. He's a big part of our room. I would expect him to have a great one tonight.
Now, just so people know, it kind of got cut off there in the beginning, but Spector did at the beginning. He said, look, this is for either you, whoever wants to take the question. And McDavid immediately says, I'm taking that. And then he said what you heard there. Pierre, just your thoughts on McDavid going to defense of Darnell Nurse there.
Leadership, smart, cares about the guy, cares about the team, cares about his leadership position. I think fantastically well done. And you nailed it right there, Jimmy. I'm really happy that you did that, because I was just going to talk about that. He says, no, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll handle that. Not Stuart Skinner. I'll handle that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was really appropriate. Well done by Connor. It's not just Darnell Nurse.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's the whipping boy, because it's what we talked about the other day.
Salary.
It's all about the money.
Yep.
It's all about the money. If Darnell Nurse was making $600,000, or let's just say the league minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say he was making $1 million.
Okay.
Do you think he'd be under this kind of heat?
No, not at all.
Chance.
Not at all.
No chance.
Nope.
And so players want salary disclosure. I get it, and I understand why. Because for years when they didn't have it, guys were getting crushed.
Yep.
But once you get salary disclosure, you're out there.
It opens it up.
It's open season.
Yep.
And it changes a lot. It changes a lot of how you're perceived as a player and how you're perceived in the community that you play in and live in. It changes a lot. So I would just say this. I thought Connor handled it really well.
Yep. I liked it. And, for people out there, I know we got some diehard Oilers fans watching us too. Like Pierre just said, it's not all in him. A lot of things went wrong the other night. Your best thing to do now is just support him and hope he can find his game, because they need him to find his game, and he's not going to do it with all that negativity around. But we'll get back to that in a little bit. Let's go to our guest, John Bartlett of Sportsnet, join us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Hey, Bart.
Jimmy, Pierre, how are you?
Great. How you doing? You look like you're great out in some nice weather, huh?
Yeah, it's a nice sunny afternoon in New York, so I'm just up in Central Park and sitting and enjoying the sights, and figured this would be a good spot to chat with you fellas. So
very good idea, Johnny. Good idea. Great to see you, John. Really good.
Yeah, likewise, Pierre. Yeah, good to see you too.
Good to see it. Listen, Bart, you've been now. What is it? Have you been with the Panthers the whole playoff, or just the last 2 rounds?
Last 2 rounds, yeah. First round, which seems like an eternity ago, was Winnipeg and Colorado. Yeah, so. Boston, Florida, and now Florida and New York.
All right, so just your thoughts as it has gone on from the time you picked up covering them in the Boston, Florida series till now, just the way they've progressed and what has gotten them to this point.
Florida's done an incredible job of, you talk about a team being strong defensively in the playoffs, but the Florida Panthers are strong defensively 200 feet of the ice. They're good in their own zone. They're really strong in the neutral zone, and they're on you so quickly on their forecheck in the offensive zone. You don't have time to make any plays. You don't have time that extra second to think. They're going to hit you on every play they can. So I think that's been their big key to success so far in the playoffs all year, is their ability not just to turn the neutral zone into a parking lot, but really get on you even in your end of the ice. And so many games this year, the Panthers have held their opponents to under 25 shots and really make it hard on them to try and get anything going to the net. So I think that's been Florida's biggest success throughout these playoffs is just really taking time and space away from their opponent in all the series. Boston, it took them a while to try and figure it out at all, to break through. And then they finally did and got an opportunity to stretch the series a little bit there. And, even it's funny, everyone looks at this series, even when you look at New York being the President's Trophy winners right now, 3 overtimes here, but that could go either way. And Florida has kind of dominated a bit of the play in those 3 games too. So it's kind of a really weird situation to be tied at 2 right now. But hey, if you're the President's Trophy winners, you find a way to win, and the Rangers have done that. And you never apologize for having a good goalie. But Florida's success really has been that. They're so hard to play against on all 200 feet of the ice, not just in their own zone. And I think that's been the biggest challenge for their opponents this year.
John, we're at the point in the playoffs where the battle of attrition becomes really apparent, especially with a lot of key players. You're traveling in this series. What are you hearing about the Ranger players in particular when it comes to injury? I'm not going to ask you names, but I think it's a pretty good idea of who's hurt and who's not hurt.
Well, I'll tell you, like, as I said, Florida loves finishing their hits. They know that every hit in game 1 will mean something by game 6. And you know what that's like, Pierre, especially when you're in the 3rd round of the playoffs. All those hits they wear on teams and throughout. So the Rangers, I'll say a name. Ryan Lindgren's taken an absolute beating in this series, and he keeps on ticking. So you see him all marked up. He got dinged up when he turned to the boards and got hit in front of the bench there last night and had to go off down to the tunnel for a bit. So you know that he's just taking a beating. Injury or not, that we don't know. I'm just saying, there's a guy who's taken a lot of hits. Adam Fox I don't think he's 100%. I think he's playing through something. Which everyone is at this time of year. That's not an excuse. But I think the Rangers certainly are feeling the effects of Florida staying on you for an entire series. They're battling through it, and that's what you have to do. But for sure, like Florida's averaging, their average, off the top of my head, it's around 45 hits a game in the playoffs. 45 a game. They haven't had less than, I think, 35 in a playoff game so far. So they're making you pay for it, right?
Yeah.
So you know it's going to catch up to you. And I don't care, Rangers, whoever, Boston will tell you they had ice bags. Florida's making you feel it every single shift. And as the series goes longer, I think that wears you down a little more. So I'm sure all the Rangers are wearing some ice bags after the games and trying to battle on with the way Florida's been playing physically all playoffs.
Bart, looking at Paul Maurice, we've talked about this a couple times on this podcast here. Just his way to know when and how to deflect the attention away from the players. How impressed have you been with that as you've covered the numerous practice press conferences and post-game press conferences?
Yeah, he's really been a maestro, like the orchestra of the press with his press conferences and all the quotes he's had and everything. I was asked about this a while ago, actually. Jeff Merrick had asked me about it because Paul Maurice and I were together when I was in the American Hockey League when he was coaching the Toronto Marlies. And he said, what have you seen from Paul Maurice? What do you see differently now? And I said, not that he wasn't before, but now more than ever, an experienced coach who's been through so much, seen so much, and knows how to sort of handle it now. And really with that veteran savvy kind of style to him. He always had the good sense of humor and the wit to him anyways. But I think now that's kind of how he commands this team. And, this team, too, the interesting thing about the Florida Panthers, they're kind of a team of castaways, not necessarily like the Misfits of Vegas, but similar when you look at how many first-round picks there were. Now they're all here in Florida trying to put it all together as a veteran team and maybe prove some people wrong. So I think Paul Maurice understands that and plays into that role a little. But, what I see most from Paul Maurice now is you've got that coach that has that veteran savvy experience, and he's not going to get rattled. He knows when to push the buttons, when to back off, and really has a good read on this hockey club for Florida. So that's what I see with him right now. I look at him and go, all right, you've got a lot of games under your belt now, Paul, and you understand how to work it even on the media side, right? He knows when to push the buttons when he wants the headlines going, and he knows when he doesn't. And when he doesn't, he's not going to make the comment. When he does, he'll slide something in and keep it going. So it's great for entertainment value. You got to love it. But I just see it as someone who's now really had the experience going through everything he's gone through with it, whether it be even in the early days or Carolina, but even so most recently, Winnipeg, the runs there, and now Florida, this run, and knowing what it is. You see that veteran savvy experience with him.
John, speaking of pushing buttons, are you surprised that nobody in the media has asked Paul Maurice about coaching Jacob Trouba in Winnipeg, and if he had ever seen this kind of behavior from Jacob Trouba when he played for him? And if he had, did he try to curtail that kind of behavior?
Yeah, that's a good one because obviously Trouba making the headlines in this series too, but I think Paul knows exactly what Trouba is, and probably because of that, probably doesn't want to get too engaged in any kind of conversation, whether it be to pump him up or kind of say fire him up or sort of compliment him and knowing what he can do. I think that might be a bit of a hot potato that he's just okay to ignore right now and sort of dodge that, right? Because he knows what kind of a player Jacob Trouba is. And I think Trouba's even stepped his game up in that matter even more since he's been in New York. I think he's sort of increased that kind of role a little bit more. So whether you want to call that a tough player or the villain, that's, however you want to look at that. But yeah, I think that's another area that he knows he's smart enough. He could go on about Jacob Trouba, but now's not the time to do it, especially in the playoff series. So, I don't think nobody has really grilled him too much on that to this point yet, but I don't think he'll lean into it if they do.
Bart, I want to switch gears a bit here. We had a man I'm sure you're familiar with, Mr. Scott Lennox, on the show yesterday. And
Yes.
I just, want to talk about your experience since getting a hockey night in Canada. What's that been like for you as a broadcaster? I know you had radio experience before that. That's when we got to know each other, was when you were in Montreal doing the Canadiens games. But what has it been like for you as your years have gone on doing games for hockey night in Canada?
Oh, okay. I thought I was going to have to tell Scott Lennox stories here, so that's a good thing. Got me out of that one there. We just had lunch earlier when we got into town. I thought, oh boy.
That's the unedited version. Another time.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, I was kind of thinking about this before we came on, and you were talking about the Montreal connection there. And look at the three of us all together. It's kind of funny with a little Montreal tie here. And then, with Pierre, even all the times on with Melnick in Montreal. And even when I filled in for him, Pierre and I would do the hits sometimes. So now I'm on your show, Pierre. It's a change. I like it. It's very cool. Yeah. So, yeah, for me, obviously getting a chance to work on Hockey Night in Canada is when you look at the legacy of the show, it certainly is special. And when you think of all the people that have come before and sort of set the bar, and I think that's the goal you have every night when you go on the show is to achieve that standard of those that were there before you. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to work on Hockey Night, and I don't think you ever take that for granted, and that's sort of it. I often chat with Dick Irvin, who's going great, is still strong, 91 and sharp as a pin, and he's still watching the games, and we talk stories all the time. But I love sharing the old stories with him, and recently with the passing of Bob Cole, obviously that got a lot of storytelling with everyone going again. It was great to reminisce there. And so, when you think about just how long that show's been around and what it means to hockey fans and what it means to viewers, especially in Canada, I think that there is an expectation of a level of excellence that you strive to achieve every night to honor those that came before you and the powder blue jackets and all that, and try to carry that on. So it's a real privilege, and every time you get to go on, like I said, it's an absolute honor and a ton of fun. So, and the playoffs, there's no better time to do it. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, that's great.
So, John, because of what you just said, I'm going to ask you, even though you're not in the series, what do you expect from the Edmonton Oilers tonight?
Yeah, well, they're in a similar situation where I feel this is it for the Oilers, kind of like Florida, who knew they needed it last night. You come back to New York at MSG down 3-1, you're in trouble. So the Oilers here, you go down 3-1 going to Dallas, they're in trouble. And that series too has really had some kind of, you think the game's going one way, and hello, right-hand turn at Albuquerque, we're going that way. So, I think the pressure in this one tonight, if Dallas doesn't win, they go home 2-2. They're okay. They'd love the 3-1, same as the Rangers, but they're okay going home 2-2. If the Oilers don't win, oh boy. So I think the heat's on the Oilers tonight, especially being at home. I think the pressure's going to be there, and if that game isn't going well, or if it starts to turn the wrong way, I think it's going to ratchet up even a little more. They'll probably feel the tension in the building too with the fans. So for Edmonton tonight, they're going to have to come out and they're going to have to really play a focused game and try to get that win, but control the nerves, because as that game progresses, and especially if it stays tight, they're going to have to stay in the moment, because I think the pressure really is on Edmonton in this game. Not the must-win, but one of those as close as a must-win as you can get to not being a must-win for the Oilers tonight is the way I kind of see it going.
I'd agree. Well, listen, John, we appreciate you taking the time. I want you to go enjoy that weather and enjoy Central Park. Looks like you got a nice kid behind you enjoying it there too. So, there.
Hey,
Sure, I'm over by the playground, so I don't know. I guess all the kids are around here
Before you
sitting
go,
on a
John,
sunny spot. Yeah.
John, you and Gary Galley have crushed it. I've been watching a ton.
Yeah.
Way to go. Really happy for you. And please do me one favor. Make sure Scotty Lennox is on that small little thing, He's not allowed to run wild. There's a curfew for Scott.
Yeah, no.
I break him in when he was a kid. There's a curfew for Scott.
Oh, yes. No, he's been good. He's been good. We've all been good. I even admitted, I was talking to Kevin Bieksa a bit this morning and talking a bit about the Western game, and I said, look, I'll be honest with you. There's been a game or two where I had to wake up in the morning and say, who won last night, and go back to the highlights. So that just means early bet. We've all been behaving curfew at this time of the year with the marathon. But yeah, Scotty's great, and we're having fun. It's the best time of year, right? So, but yeah, pleasure to join you guys. Great to see you, Pierre.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
Yeah, and Bart, as I was saying before you came on too, I remember that day when you helped close that show out at the West Island. Club West Island was good times. I'll always remember that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. We'll have to get together with Steve Traynor again sometime.
I try to see him when we're in Montreal. We usually catch up once in a while and try to get together. Pierre knows what it's like when you get back into Montreal in the city. You got a million people to see and try to catch up in a short window of time. So you've got to try to squeeze it all in as best I can. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, enjoy the rest of the playoffs, my friend. We'll get you on down the line.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Great to see you. Take care.
All right. That's John Bartlett joining us here on the Eye Test from Sportsnet. Great guy, Pierre. Just a really good guy.
Very good broadcaster.
He's a great broadcaster, and he has one of those voices too. Like, I've been really impressed with the transition to TV for him, because I always thought he was a great radio guy. I mean, he's just got that voice that's perfect for radio, for doing play-by-play. But he's done a great job there. And I don't know if you could even comment on this, Pierre, because you know how, when a radio announcer, obviously the listeners aren't usually seeing the action, right? So they have to really paint that picture for the listener, right? But then you make a transition to TV where they are seeing the action. I wonder what that's like. I should have asked him too, what that's like for a radio guy to what's the word, that in-between talk, so to speak, to keep that going. All right, you got the action, right? But there was more time, I think, when you're on radio. You had to do it more. You were just used to it. What do you think that transition's like for play-by-play from radio to TV?
It's probably pretty hard.
Yeah.
I had a chance to be around the great Chuck Caton for so many years. And just the way he would craft a game was unbelievable. I'm just telling you. He was so good. Chuck was so good. And John Bartlett actually reminds me a lot of Chuck. They've got the booming voice. They've got great pipes. They see the game. They got awesome peripheral vision for the game. They know how to talk about the nuances of the game on radio, which is really hard to do.
Exactly. That's
boring people. And I think he's just special. And I think John Bartlett's very much the same. I wasn't messing around. I get to watch a lot of different things, and I think he and Gary Galley have done a very nice job with this series in particular. Very good job.
Gary Galley is really impressive too as a color guy. Of course, I watched him growing up when he was with the Boston Bruins playing.
He was with the Boston Bruins, but I remember him when he was playing at Bowling Green University.
Oh, speaking of, funny you bring that up. Our friend Rob Simpson sent me a story, and I forwarded it to you there. He was at the press conference for Dan Bylsma, and he did a story on this, and I'll post a link on Twitter afterwards for anyone who wants to read it. But I did not realize that Dan Bylsma played for one Jerry York at Bowling Green.
I coached against that team when I was at St. Lawrence. It was Joe Marsh, PJ Flanagan, and I as a coaching staff at St. Lawrence at the Dexter Shoe Classic in Orono, Maine. And what I remember about that tournament is we played Bowling Green, and we were really good. We had a really good team at St. Lawrence. And we played Bowling Green, and Rob Blake and Nelson Emerson and Matt Ruckty and Dan Bylsma were all their top players. Now, Bilesman was not as good as Ruckty. He was not as good as Blake, obviously, and he wasn't. Nelson Emerson was a really good player.
Oh, yeah.
And one of our players who ended up playing in the NHL, Joe Day, was an elite penalty killer for us. And Rob Blake had a bomb of a shot. He was a right-hand shot, and he could rip it. And Emerson was such a good passer. He put it right in Blake's wheelhouse on the power play, and he'd hammer it. Well, Joe Day gets in the lane and blocks it. I thought he broke his leg. I mean, this kid not playing for me in the NHL. He did. Joey played for me in the NHL, but you know what? He came to the bench. And he just looked at me and goes, "No, I'm not good at that." And right then, I remember after the period, I went to Joe Marsh and I said, "This Blake kid's really good." I go, "Oh, yeah." He goes, "Am I paying you to do this and provide this information?" Like you couldn't see he was good. I was like, "Oh, he's really good." And then right after that season, Rob Blake was in LA.
Wow. Just like that, huh?
Yeah. You know who his mentor was in LA? Larry Robinson.
That's right.
Couldn't have had a better mentor for Rob Blake.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
I know they shot different ways and everything else, but couldn't have had a better mentor.
Experience, the knowledge of the game to have that coming in.
Rob's a Hall of Famer and I forget what all the pundits on the internet say and everything else. He's done a nice job in Los Angeles. They're developing a good brand. It's unfortunate they're stuck there. They're still kind of in a rebuild, and everybody's getting mad at them because they didn't beat Edmonton. Like, come on, Edmonton's a good team.
They are.
Not like they're a bad team.
Yeah.
There's still some holes in the lineup in LA. But anyway, so Blake, when you sent me that, I was thinking about Disco Dan Bilesman. That's his nickname.
Well, how did he get that nickname, by the way?
I prefer he tell you the story.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to get him on then, and we'll have him tell the story. By the way, what just as a college player, what what was his style? What
type of down, meat and potatoes. Up and down, meat and potato, but hard on the puck. Good forechecker. Played a little bit in Anaheim, mostly in the American League or the old IHL. Mm-hmm. But he was, he was a good player. He wasn't he was a good player. He's a hard player.
You can see that in his teams.
Anybody that gets coached by Jerry York, there's no college coach, and I did it because I had to break it down for the Hall of Fame. No college coach has ever coached more players who have played 50 games or more in the NHL than Jerry York.
That's insane.
Nobody has.
Wow.
And there are a couple that are close. Ronnie Mason's close. The late Ron Mason. Jack Parker's close, but nobody coached more than Jerry York.
And he's a class act, too.
Coach York? Oh, my God.
I love him. Yeah. The nicest guy in the world. I mean, I don't know how he was as a coach or a player.
Oh,
he's the nicest guy in the world.
So there's a famous Italian restaurant in South Bend, Indiana. It's called Parisi's.
Oh, okay.
It's really good. Okay, trust me. Okay. It's just off of campus, and a lot of the teams go there and have dinners. And when I was doing NBC games with Doc, we would take our crew there. We would take our cameramen and our producers, directors, EVS ops, and one time Coach York was there because we were doing the BC Notre Dame game. Cool. And he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, I need to talk to you." So he says, "Would you mind talking to my team about, Notre Dame and the history of Notre Dame hockey?" And I said, "Sure, Coach. When do you want to do it?" He goes, "Right now." So I said, "Okay, Coach, I'll do it." And I did. That team was interesting because I had spoken a few times to Coach York's team, but it was always at BC.
Right.
When Greg Brown was there as an assistant, and Mike Cavanaugh, our friend Mike Cavanaugh, was there as an assistant.
Yep.
And it was awesome. It was great. And they had so many good players over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a BC team that was kind of finding its way. It still wasn't an elite team. Mm-hmm. Graham McPhee was on that team. And Graham's father was George, the president of the Vegas Golden Knights. And I went up to Graham afterwards and I said, I remember you when you were really young. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I remember you too coming to our house in Washington." Graham might have been this big. He's like this big, and I was like, darn, it goes fast. It's amazing. Yeah. Graham finished this year in Belleville, Ottawa's team. Yeah.
Great. So, yeah. Good stuff. Small world. That's all we can say. The hockey world is a very small world. I love it. We have to get Coach York on sometime here.
We can. He knows.
Friday.
You see where I'm in. I won't tell you the town, but I'm close to Harvard. Anyways, there's Coach York's not far from me.
I know.
He's very close to me. So we can do Coach York and get him on. Yeah.
Get him on. I'll tell you, speaking of, I miss the on-campus Fridays. I can't wait to get those going again next year. I love those.
Not only will they be a regular thing, I think at some point we need to actually go on campus.
On location.
Yep. On location. Because, you and I are fortunate because we're in this area where UNH is around, Merrimack's around, Harvard's around, BC's around, BU's around, Northeastern's around, Providence is around, UMass Amherst is around.
Mm-hmm.
We've got all the UConn is not far. We're like in this hub.
Yeah, we got to do it.
Dartmouth is close. I mean, you start looking at all the different. We're not that far from all these teams, and I think at some point we should probably look at doing an on-campus Friday, but really on campus.
Yep, I'm down with it.
I think the schools are. I've talked to Commissioner Christensen about it in the ECAC, and he seemed to be excited about that, and we can do the same kind of discussion with the hockey's people.
Right.
But when you go to Northeastern, I'm not going. I'm just going to walk.
Okay, but here's the deal: we gotta do one from Parisi's in South Bend.
Well, you know what? If we did, you would be very happy. You'd say, McGuire, you're actually a food connoisseur.
Oh, I know you are.
It's a really good. It's a special place.
I'm a huge Notre Dame fan, so I've never been to Notre Dame. I've never made it to South Bend, so that's a bucket list.
So there are two cool places that I like to go to at Notre Dame. One is obviously Parisi's, and the other one is the Linebacker Lounge.
I've heard of the Linebacker Lounge. My good friend Brendan Quinn, who you met in Springfield,
yes,
when we were there, he is a big fan of that place. Him and his dad go there before they go to the football games every year.
Yeah, it would be a unique opportunity to go before a football game. I can only imagine. I've been there more when it's a little bit cold and there hasn't been any football played for a while. But the Linebacker Lounge is one of my favorite places to go and explore.
Awesome. Good stuff. We'll look forward to it. We're definitely going to make that happen next year. All right. Let's tell you about our sponsor, and then we're going to get to questions here on the Wednesday afternoon as we get ready for Game 4 of the Western Conference Final. TCS Customs and Logistics. You want to go there right now, unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting, TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport. Moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For a no-obligation customs or freight quote, contact Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that's Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. All right, what do we got in the questions today? Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, how do the Rangers turn the power play around?
Well, they had a power play goal last night.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a heck of a play by Trocheck.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's a really good shot. I don't know how much they need to turn it around. I think it's more about the way Florida's defending. And I talked about this on Stanley Cup Central, that NHL show that I'm doing.
Yep.
Sylvain Lefebvre does a lot of their coaching on special teams, especially in the penalty kill. And as I'm watching Florida defend, I'm going, there's Pat Burns, there's Jacques Laperriere, and there's a little tie into the vintage Jacques Lemaire stuff.
Yep.
Even though Jacques never coached Sylvain, but I'm sure it was passed down to Lappy, Jacques Laperriere, and obviously Pat Burns, the late Pat Burns. And I'm watching. So here's my test for you, Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
As Father Tom would say at Mass. Here's my test for the week.
All right.
My test for you is to watch Florida penalty kill tomorrow night.
Okay.
Watch their stick positions and watch their body positions. And the Rangers have no answer for it.
Okay.
It's amazing.
There's
it's reminding me of Pat Burns and Jacques Lemaire and Jacques Laperriere. It's just unbelievable. They're reminding me so much of New Jersey and Montreal and Toronto. It's amazing when those teams are really good on the penalty kill.
All right. That challenge is accepted. I will do that and get back to you with a scouting report on Friday. All right. Next question. A to Z me, watching the Oilers play last game, and when the camera cuts to Knobloch, he looks a little nervous behind the bench. How does that affect a team, in your opinion? I haven't noticed it, but just the general question, Pierre.
Yeah.
Expressions, body movement, and stuff like that. Does it affect the team when they look back and they see a coach either looking poised or not so poised?
I can. This is his first time through it too, and it's the first time through it for Paul as a coach. Coffee,
Mhm.
and it's I think the first time for Mark Stewart as well. So it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, and you look at the other bench, and Spot's got a lot of experience. Nasruddin's got a lot of experience. DeBoer's got an unbelievable amount of experience. So when it comes to the experience thing, Edmonton loses. So I got to think that the players probably are aware of that.
Yep.
But I don't know if Knobloch's nervous. Maybe he seems to be skittish, but I don't think he is. There's one thing I would say, though, and I'm not picking on – I don't want to pick a fight with the analytics guys, but their goalie pulls have to be based on analytics.
Yeah.
They're not good.
No.
That's all I'm going to say. For
They're
them.
not reading the temperature of the game. They're not reading the moment.
Oh, their analytic pulls are no good, and they're going to have to fix that.
Remember what I said to you, Pierre, too? And it's happening in baseball. The goalie pulls in hockey, and then you got the pitcher pulls in baseball when they're taking they're pulling pitchers when they got a no-hitter going. Just because the analytics say so, and you're like, what? Yeah. So, they got to read the moment better. All right, next question. Evan McLaren, what do you guys think about Riley Smith in Pittsburgh? If you were Dubas, would you move him in the offseason, or would you hope for a bounce-back campaign after a disappointing season? Pierre, I'll just say quickly, and then I'll let you take it, but I think he's like one of the least worries right now for Dubas when it comes to that roster.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Here's the one thing. I'm just looking it up now. I just want to be transparent here. So he's made $41 million in his career. He's got 1 year left, but he's got a no move. He's at 5, so I don't think he's going anywhere. And I would tell you this, and I want to be transparent. I went out to scout 2 guys when I was working in Ottawa from Vegas because they both had a chance to be free agents. Mm-hmm. One of them was Riley Smith, and the other one was Jonathan Marchessault. And they were, at that time, 3 years ago, they were both on top of it. They were on top of it. I think Riley's game offensively has slipped a little bit, but there's still other stuff that he does that makes him valuable.
Exactly.
Jonathan's game hasn't slipped.
No.
Has not slipped. So he needs a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Marchessault needs a contract. Yep. Riley Smith doesn't, but he's got a no move. So
we'll see what happens. Marchessault's an interesting situation. We'll talk about that another time, though. All right, next question. Gregory Debo. What player takes over next game, and will his team to win the opposite leaf move, as I call it? I'm not sure I understand the question.
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
And I think he's talking about Florida and the Rangers and which team takes over the game and wills his team to win. Okay. I'm going to say that I think Sasha Barkov for Florida, and I'm going to say on the Rangers side of it, Chris Kreider.
I'm going with you on the Rangers side for sure.
If Rangers win, I think it's going to be Kreider because of the experience that he has and the leadership qualities that he has. But I also think Barkov's starting to percolate. I mean, he's had a very good playoff.
Yeah.
But there were moments in that game last night where you're like, ooh, he's this close. Yeah. Even off the first sequence of the game, the puck just rolled off his stick.
Yeah.
But you can just see he's there. It's this close.
Right. And he's still doing so many other things. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the little things he does out there. It's invaluable.
By the way, that gentleman that just sent us that question, I think that's the third question he's asked us. And he was a gentleman putting up the
yeah.
So that's very kind of him, and thank you very much.
Of course.
Those questions.
Yeah, and George has got some great questions, too.
They do, right. So we appreciate those. Thanks, George.
All right, next question. Mike, I think it is obvious that the Panthers are just the better, healthier team. Rangers D-men are really hurting. I think that is one of the reasons they get hemmed in their zone for long periods of time. Completely agree, Mike.
That, and also, Mike, you got to remember the calling card for Florida is their cycle game. And if they cycle for 15 seconds or more and they're starting to push 20 seconds, the team that's defending, you're out of gas. So your best hope is to strip them of the puck, get to center ice and get the puck in and get off. Yep. That's the problem. And so it's not just about the hitting, it's the grinding. And that's why I call it, and I have been for a long time, it's the football background. I have the ground and pound. Jimmy, I've been saying it for a lot of years. And it's become a popular thing for people to use. because it's graphic. You can picture it, ground and pound. And so Florida does that as well. Well, actually, they do it better than anybody else in the league.
Yeah.
They do it better than anybody else in the league.
And you're right. They get you scrambling. They get you tired. You start doing things you're not normally going to do to defend. And that's when the mistakes happen. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, do you think players on the Leafs will take to an old school coach like Berube? I think some of them will. Look, it's gonna take a lot of him getting them to buy in, and I think that's why he's a good guy for that. So that's why he was hired. But
I'm going to be interested to see who his staff is. I know Mike Van Ryan really well, and it sounds like he's going to be part of the staff. And Mike is a really good conduit when it comes to teaching defensemen and working with them. So I think that's a positive thing. He won a Stanley Cup with Craig in St. Louis, so I think that's really positive. I don't know. I hear the rumors potentially Mike Yeo might be leaving Vancouver. Well, he's out of Vancouver now, but he might be leaving Vancouver to go to Toronto. I hear that rumor. I've heard rumors about Bruce Boudreau potentially going to Toronto. He's a Toronto guy, and he was a tremendous Toronto Marley when he was a junior player. He was a legendary junior player in Toronto. So, I hear a lot of different names. It'll be interesting. I think Craig will have no problem with the players. I'm going to be interested to see the staff that he hires.
And one thing I want to pull out about Mike Van Ryan, Pierre, it's something you pointed out during the Toronto-Boston series, and rightfully so. And you said, look, when Toronto started to get back in the series and they ended up forcing seventh game, you pointed out the switch in formation, defending the Bruins, and how he was behind that, and what a great job. And that changed the series. When they decided to switch it up and really focus on the defense there, it changed the series a lot, and they almost pulled it off.
Yeah, they almost did. There's some things that I think Craig will make them better at. They'll all be held accountable.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it was I haven't been in Toronto for a Leaf game in a long time. I've been to Toronto a lot for the Hockey Hall of Fame, and I'm excited and proud to say that I'm able to do that. But I haven't been to a Leaf game. I haven't been on a Leaf dressing room in probably 3 years. So I don't know whether it's a country club or not. But here's what I'll tell you. When it comes to a physical type game and it becomes nasty, Jimmy, they haven't won those. They haven't won those.
Yeah. So, and they need to, because that's what the playoffs is. Yeah. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, I think this might be the best Final Four in a while. I think both series are going 7, if not a hard 6. I think it's the best Final Four since 2015, Chicago, Anaheim, Rangers, Lightning. I think it's a great Final Four as well, Pierre.
I agree with Alex. It's a really good Final Four.
I love it. I'm enjoying it.
Up until 2022, I had done all of them since 2000. So it's a long time, a lot of games.
Yeah,
it's a really good one. This is it's a really good Final Four. It is. Really
I like it. All right, next question. Gregory Debo again. Do we see Picard this series?
I don't think tonight.
No.
So I'd be surprised. He played that hunch. He played that hunch once going into Vancouver, and it worked. Eventually, it worked.
Yeah,
but I'd be surprised.
Yeah, me too. We'll see. All right, next question. FFF. Hello. Do you see Montreal having to get more large forwards? It had some intimidators like a Tanev, Bennett, Frederick, Joshua. I think they definitely want that type of player.
I do too.
That is definitely on the shopping list.
I think that's all.
Gordon said it right on this show, and so did Kent Hughes. So they're looking.
I agree. I think they will. It's a good question. F. Is it 4 or 3 Fs?
4 Fs.
4 Fs. 4 F.
They just call him 4F.
4 F.
That's his new nickname. All right. Next question. Jason Logan. Hey guys, what do you think the Rangers need to get their game back on track? Going back to how they played in the first 2 rounds. Do they have injuries? But do you think they're gone out of their game plan?
I think Florida makes you out of your game plan, but I also think that, the Rangers have a lot of guys hurt. I do. I really do. And I said that before we talked to John, and then it was nice to hear John kind of support that. He's around the series. the only way you can know if guys are truly hurt is with people that are in the series.
Yeah.
People talk. They don't talk to the world. They talk to the people that are around the series. That guy has an ice pack. That guy's doing stem. That that guy couldn't go for practice.
You see things in the hallways.
Yeah, you do. You're in the hallway, so it's just different. That's all.
Yep. All right, next question. State of survival. I see that Waugh is much more composed on camera compared to yesteryear.
Mm-hmm.
Has he really changed? How did he learn to coach without his strong nature? I saw his success in the Qs. Talking about Patrick Waugh, of course.
Yeah, you know what? That's such a good question. So I think over time, guys get better.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that when you work for Lou Lamoriello, there's certain things you have to follow.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how he does it. So I think a lot was talked about before Patrick went there. And I think that, one of the best things that happened to Patrick going to the Islanders is Jacques Lemaire's there.
Yep.
And I've talked about this before. Jacques was an awesome coach. He really was. I mean, Jimmy, I feel so blessed to say that when I was coaching as an assistant and then as a head, it was like the golden era for all these guys, Pat Quinn, Scotty Bowman, Pat Burns. There were so many of them, Ken Hitchcock, Bob Gainey, coached against all those guys. And I would just tell you that Patty has a chance to learn from Jacques Lemaire and Lou Lamoriello. But I think a lot of that came from him winning the Memorial Cup too in Quebec.
Yeah.
So you grow up. I mean, you learn over time and you grow up, and you have mentors that you deal with.
And a credit to him too, and a credit to anyone who does this, Pierre. So we all have to do it to adapt and get better in our fields, whatever we're doing.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tape some of our calls, what you and I have for the listeners.
Yep.
Just so they can hear.
Yep. I'm down with that.
I would never do that.
I don't know. There's some stuff I'd be okay with that would go out there. I wouldn't mind that.
Talking about nothing's malicious.
No, and I want people to see the way you mentor me. I mean, I appreciate that, and
we're a team, so that's what you got to do. You got to always remember that.
But I think one of the greatest things too, Pierre, and you know this. I mean, you need to. There are times in your career and in anything you need to look in the mirror and just say, all right, I need to get better at this. I need to get this out of my repertoire and really, admit that this is one of my mistakes. And credit to Patrick Waugh. I think he's done that. He's done a good job of it, and he's accepting that. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that team going forward. I think they're going to be a busy team in the offseason. We already saw a trade with them with some draft picks, maybe setting up for a trade later on. So they'll be an interesting team. All right, next question.
By you, Jimmy. Really good. Well done.
All right, thank you. Next question. Mike, I will give you guys a break from the hockey questions. Do either of you collect sports cards memorabilia? Well, I told you I used to, and my brother decided he needed to make some extra money and sold everything away, but I haven't in a while. The one thing I do collect, and I always make it a point, is programs from games. I always grab a program when I'm, even as a reporter, I grab them in the different arenas I'm in. I don't know.
You know who used to be the editor of the NHL program back in the day?
Was that Goal Magazine?
Yes. Stu Hackle.
That's right.
Stu Hackle.
I have plenty of those, man. I've got so many of those magazines still from the 80s.
He was really good at it too.
Oh, those are awesome.
So I'm not a collector per se, but Jimmy knows, and I've talked to him about it. I've been very fortunate with some of the players that I've coached and the teams that I've coached. I've got some valuable things that I keep hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm no longer, somebody will reap the reward.
Yep. There you go.
Peoples will reap the reward.
Yeah. And one thing I always kept, I haven't done in a while too, is like newspaper front pages or back pages. Like when the Red Sox won the World Series, I still have the Globe and the Herald's, front page, stuff like that. I'll tell you what, Pierre, a pub owner would love me because he could have the coolest wall of all these front page, these front page of the newspapers over the years when the Bruins.
I thought you were going to say the pub owner would love you because you'd have a huge bill.
Oh yeah, he'll love that too. That goes without saying. Next question. What do we got here to close it off? Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, does it bother you when the refs put away the whistle during the playoffs? No. And I don't think they per se. I find like that's an exaggerated thing at sometimes. I think they do ref differently, but overall, I think they try to catch the infractions that are impacting a game.
I think it's gotten a lot better. I
Yeah.
do. My whole thing is set the standard in the first period. Set the standard. If the standard set in the first period and you carry the same standard the entire game, it's all fair.
Yep.
That matters. Just telling you that matters. That's what the teams want. They just want to know what the standard is. Once they know what the standard is, they go play.
And maintain that standard.
Yeah, but that's the standard. You got to keep it.
Yeah.
You can't deviate.
All right, next question. Alex Evanowski, how come analytics keep getting rewarded with more power in the NHL? Clearly, we all agree there's some serious holes in the process. Is it just a trendy thing? Yes. And I don't know, Pierre, maybe I'm off saying this, and I'm not calling any teams out, but I do think that some ownerships or managements for their ownerships think that or have thought that analytics could save them money and kind of cut some costs here and there. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I don't think you're wrong.
Okay.
I don't think you're wrong.
When it comes down to it, it's all about money.
There's some things, though, I'm going to say I've tried to study it a lot since it's become more and more in vogue. There's some things that are applicable, very easy for me to say, applicable. Applicable. Easy for me to say. There's some that are really applicable, and there are others that are not. They're not. And that's why you have to have the eye test. There's some things that just they don't apply. There are others that does. And
I think some recent there's been some recent Stanley Cup champions that have done a great job of finding that common ground and combining the two. So that's how you win right now. That's how you win.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Marvin Matthews, are we seeing the next great young player in Alexis Lafreniere? Yes. This not that Pierre and I never thought he was going to reach his potential, and he's still got more, I think, to give. But yeah, it's been great watching him kind of blossom this season, and especially in the playoffs.
I'm happy Marvin texted in a question.
Yeah, I know.
He was such a regular for a long time.
I know.
Lafreniere is really good. He's the first overall pick in a really good draft in 2020. So he's a really good player. I never doubted him at all. I think like a lot of players in that draft in particular, in the 21 draft, they got hurt because of COVID. There was a lack of development because of COVID and the restrictions in terms of where you can play, how many games you can play, where you could train. I think a lot of those kids are just catching up now. You know, they're 21, 22, 23 years of age. They're just catching up now. And Lafreniere is one of them.
Yep, for sure. And by the way, Marvin Matthews is probably too busy making great music. I know he's a good musician. All right, next question. Gregory Debo, who's being traded out of Ottawa? Tons of talent, but the mix has not gotten results. I don't know who, but I definitely agree with you. I think they're going to be a busy team in the next month or two. I would just say
I'm not starting any rumors about Ottawa because I didn't like what I was reading with Brady Tkachuk. I didn't like that at all. I didn't think it was appropriate. Talked about that with you yesterday. They need to. I think they need to have an internal conversation about where they're going with their goaltending. They have. I will say this: they've got prospects. Levi Marilainen's a legitimate prospect. Mad Sogard is a legitimate prospect. So that's exciting for them. But they need to have who's going to play on right defense, who's going to be the shutdown guy on that team. Is Tyler Clevin going to be ready to play at the NHL level in a shutdown role? He's a left shot, and is he going to be ready to play at that level? There are a lot of questions about that group, Jimmy, but I would say they're more positive things with that group than negative things.
Yeah, I agree.
Now they got to figure out the goalie stuff. They really do. And they got to figure out the right defense stuff. That's a big part of this.
Yep. I'd agree. They're going to be interesting to watch in the next 2 months. All right. Next question. Hey guys, Larry Robinson at a plus 730 plus minus. Do you think he is qualified to teach that strategy to younger coaches? Yes. And that's from 4F, by the way. That's a new
Listen,
name.
4F, if you know anything about me, I've been talking about Larry for a long time. When I was pursuing and being asked to pursue the Canes GM job before Mark Bergevin got it, I told them in my last meeting with the upper management and ownership that if I had a chance, I would want Larry back in the organization and on the staff. So I saw Larry in 2019 working with Berube and the Blues when they won the Cup, and he was the unseen hand that was really helping that big, physical, nasty defense, along with Mike Van Ryn in St. Louis. So I'm a big Larry fan. I won't even try to hide it. Won't even try.
All right. What do we got? Any more questions here, guys? Jason Logan, with Robinson getting 3 goals the last game, do you think he has the monkey off his back and he's going to turn it up now? He's a great player. Agreed, Jason.
Doesn't hurt to have Rope Hintz back.
Oh, yeah.
So you get Rope back, and then you open up that tandem, which is obviously lethal. And then the other thing, it really opens up a lot of room for Wyatt Johnston, for Jamie Benn, and for Logan Stankoven. That's when now you're creating the proper structure. Duchesne can slide to the 2-hole or the 3-hole. Johnson can be in the 2 or the 3-hole. Rope can play in the 1-hole. It just changes the matchups. Yeah. And it's harder for Edmonton to defend. It's a big Rope coming back made everybody better.
I got a lot more to worry about now with him back. All right, next question. Real Deal Prime. Since most pucks are made from recycled car tires, Pierre, what future rule change could you see or implemented in today's NHL?
I could see them at some point taking the trapezoid out.
Yeah.
I could.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this.
The other one is obviously goalie interference. That's going to be the biggest one on everybody's docket going into the summer and going into the competition committee. What can we do to create a better standard for goalie interference?
When is that meeting for the competition committee, Pierre? Do you know?
It's coming up. I think just before. Sometimes it's at the draft or just before.
Okay.
But I haven't ever been on that committee. I've never been on that. I've been on the board of governors. I've never been on the competition committee.
Okay. All right. Next question. Jason Logan. Hey guys, what do you think the Rangers need to get their? Oh, we already had that one, guys. All right. Next question. Kook69. Pierre, you must be one of the hardest working men in hockey, and have enjoyed watching your input alongside the young hosts, the 2 gals and a guy on NHL Live playoff scores and updates.
Well, that's so nice of you to say that. It means a lot to me. Thank you. I love what I do. I'm really blessed to have the support of my family. I miss being in the rinks every day, but doing this is the next best thing. I'm watching all the games. It's being able, even in the morning when I wake up, the replays of the Memorial Cup now. And congratulations to Medicine Hat. Unfortunately, Drummondville is out. But now we're getting close to the Final Four, or the Final Three, I should say, in the Memorial Cup, which is great. And you know what? I love doing this. I love talking hockey, and if I can help in any way grow the game, I want to do that. I've always wanted to do that.
I love it. All right, next question. Gregory Debo. Corpusalo for Campbell? Why not?
The money would be a wash. That's creative.
Change the scenery for both people? Why not?
You know what's interesting, too? The president and general manager of the Ottawa Senators, before he came to Ottawa, he worked in Edmonton.
Ooh, interesting. You might be onto something, Greg.
But I don't see that happening.
Nope. It's not a bad idea.
It's actually a creative thought.
I like it. That's why I love our listeners and our viewers, Pierre.
Really creative. That got my attention.
They're creative. They think, and they ask us really great questions, and we appreciate that. And, of course, we appreciate our production crew up in Montreal, and a big shout-out to John Bartlett as well from Sportsnet joining us. He was great. Having fun. Nice background, too, sitting in Central Park.
That's fun that you can see.
Awesome.
That's good. They earn it. Those guys, I can tell you this, having done that for a lot of years, you need sometimes just to take the air out of the balloon. And a walk around Central Park's a good way to take the air out of the balloon.
Yeah, especially on a beautiful day like this. I went for a nice walk right before the podcast, and it really helps for sure.
What a good sleep, Jimmy. Really good sleep today.
It was. I'm out of shape, but we're getting there. We're getting there, Pierre. We're getting there. All right, and thanks to you, Pierre, as well. And we will talk to you tomorrow. We might have Molly Walker. We're hoping. and also another guest I'll maybe have an announcement for Friday. So we'll see what happens with that. But until then, enjoy Game 4 Oilers Stars tonight, and we'll talk to you on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network tomorrow.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.